I want you to imagine this moment with me slowly, calmly, like you and I are sitting together in a quiet room, learning English in a soft and easy way, the way a friend teaches a friend, and I, your narrator from Mr. English Lab, guide you into this long story about negotiation, confidence, and the surprising way a single conversation can change a life. So take a breath, relax your shoulders, and let this story move gently. Our story begins with a young man named Daniel, a man who speaks English well but still feels something missing, something inside him shaking a little every time he has to speak with authority. Daniel works in a small company that imports handmade tea from different parts of the world, and he loves his job, but he often feels nervous when he needs to talk to clients or leaders. He always thinks, what if my English is not enough? What if I sound weak? What if I lose the chance because I cannot say things clearly? And maybe you understand this feeling too, because many English learners, even very strong ones, feel this fear when the moment is important. One morning, Daniel's boss, Mr. Harris, calls him into the office and says, in a calm voice, "Daniel, I want you to join a negotiation meeting tomorrow. A new supplier from India wants to change the price. We need to talk with them and find a fair deal." Daniel smiles on the outside, but inside, his heart beats fast. Negotiation? Him? He has never done that before. He wants to say, maybe I'm not ready, but the words do not come. Instead, he nods. Outside the office, he feels the weight of the task. He walks to a small cafe near the company, sits by the window, and looks at his reflection in the glass. He whispers to himself, very softly, "Can I do this? Can I really speak with confidence?" The world outside continues as usual. People walk, buses pass, a child laughs, someone drops a spoon, and yet inside Daniel's mind, everything feels frozen. He knows the meeting is important. The supplier might increase the cost, and the company depends on stable prices. If Daniel speaks well, he can help both sides find a good solution. If he fails, the company might lose money. He picks up his phone and rewinds memories of the past, moments when he avoided speaking first, moments when he agreed too quickly, moments when he could not express his opinion with strong and simple words. In this quiet cafe, he decides something. He will try. He will try with all his energy, with all his fear, with all his hope, and with his growing English skills. As he drinks his tea, he begins imagining the negotiation. He imagines the questions, the tone, the pauses. He imagines speaking slowly and clearly, not fast, not loud. He imagines listening, really listening, because negotiation is not just talking, it is understanding. A soft calm starts to enter his chest. As the day goes on, Daniel feels the mixture of fear and purpose. That night, he cannot sleep much. He lies in bed thinking about words, value, agreement, proposal, fair, flexible, balanced. These words turn in his mind like small stones in a river. When he finally sleeps, he dreams that he is standing in a large room, facing many people, speaking confidently, but he cannot hear his own voice. In the morning, he feels tired but strangely ready. At the office, Mr. Harris hands him the file and says, "I believe in you. Just listen carefully, speak clearly, and remember that negotiations are conversations, not battles." Daniel smiles weakly, holding the file like it is a heavy book filled with secrets. The meeting room is bright, with a big oval table. The supplier representative, a calm man named Mr. Sin, joins through a video call. Daniel sits with a glass of water, and when the meeting begins, he feels the old shaking in his hands. Mr. Harris introduces everyone, then turns to Daniel and says, "Daniel will present our perspective." And suddenly, it is Daniel's moment. The entire room seems to wait. Daniel clears his throat and begins slowly, Thank you for joining us. We appreciate your partnership, and we want to understand your new proposal. His voice is soft but steady. As he continues, something interesting happens. The meeting does not go perfectly, but it goes better than he feared. Mr. Sin explains his concerns. Daniel listens carefully, nods, asks simple questions, repeats key points to show understanding, and the conversation starts to feel more natural. There are moments when Daniel does not know the perfect word, but he breathes, pauses, and explains with simple English. And the surprising thing is, it works. People understand him. His English, even simple, even calm, helps him make clear ideas. The negotiation ends with no final decision, but with good progress. Mr. Harris pats Daniel on the shoulder and says, "Well done. Let's continue next week." Daniel walks out feeling like he just climbed a mountain. He is tired but proud. His heart is still fast, but not because of fear, because of excitement. In that moment, Daniel understands something important. Negotiation is not about being perfect. It is about being present. It is about listening, breathing, and staying calm even when you feel unsure. On the way home, he looks at the sky and whispers, "I can learn this. I can grow." And something inside him shifts. A small transformation begins, the first step of many. He realizes that English is not just grammar and vocabulary. It is a bridge, a tool, a way to express value and emotion. He understands now that negotiation is a skill that grows through experience, not magic. And this understanding becomes his quiet strength. When he reaches home, he opens his notebook and writes a single sentence. "Today, I took my first step." As he closes the notebook, he smiles because deep inside, he knows that tomorrow he will take another. He is becoming someone new, someone who does not hide from important conversations, someone who uses English with purpose. This is the beginning of Daniel's journey into the world of negotiation, a journey that will teach him courage, clarity, and the ability to speak with impact. And as you listen to this story, you are taking your own steps too, learning how to use English with confidence. Remember this feeling, this moment, this soft beginning, because the next part of Daniel's journey will take him deeper into the art of negotiation, where he will face new challenges, discover new strategies, and learn how powerful simple English can be when used with calm and focus. And so, the story continues. The next week arrives slowly, like a long walk through a quiet road, and Daniel feels every day stretching with a mix of worry and curiosity. Each morning, he wakes up and thinks about the next negotiation meeting, and each night, he practices speaking alone in his room, using simple English phrases, repeating them softly so he can hear the rhythm in his voice. He stands in front of his small mirror, practicing sentences like, "Let us explore this together," or "I understand your concern," or "Can we find a balanced solution?" He practices not because he wants to sound perfect, but because he wants to feel ready, calm, and steady when the moment comes again. But even with all his practice, something still feels unclear inside him. He knows that negotiations are not only about speaking. There is something deeper, something invisible, something silent that strong negotiators understand. He just doesn't know what it is yet. One afternoon, he sits with Mr. Harris in the office cafeteria. Mr. Harris sips his coffee and looks at Daniel with gentle eyes. "You did well last time," he says, "but there's one skill you must learn, the most important one in negotiation." Daniel leans forward, curious, ready, expecting to hear some complicated business strategy, some special technique with a difficult English name. But instead, Mr. Harris smiles and says, "The silent skill is listening." Real listening. Not waiting to talk. Not preparing your answer while the other person speaks. Just listening. Daniel frowns a little because it sounds too simple. He wonders how something so basic can matter so much. But Mr. Harris explains, when you listen deeply, people feel safe. They open up. They trust you. And when they trust you, they share the truth. And negotiation becomes easier, lighter, more human. These words stay in Daniel's mind like a soft echo. That evening, he goes home and sits on his bed, thinking about listening. He realizes that in many conversations, he is busy thinking about what to say next. He remembers moments when he nodded, but did not fully understand. He remembers conversations where he worried more about sounding correct than truly hearing the other person. And he thinks, maybe this is the key. Maybe this is where I grow. So he decides to practice. He starts small. When he buys food from the store, he listens carefully to the cashier's tone, not just the words. When he talks with his neighbor, he listens without interrupting. When he watches a short English video online, he listens for the emotion, the intention, the meaning between the lines. And slowly, something begins to change. His mind becomes quieter. His breathing becomes slower. He begins to feel present, really present, in conversations. And it feels peaceful, like learning to sit still in the middle of a busy street. The next day at the office, the second negotiation meeting begins. This time, Daniel enters the room with a softer heart. He takes his seat, opens his notebook, and reminds himself, listen first. When the video call starts, Mr. Sin appears again on the screen. His eyes are tired, and his voice sounds heavier than last week. He explains that the cost of production has increased due to weather changes and transportation problems. His company is struggling, and the price adjustment is not just a business decision, but a survival decision. As Daniel listens, he feels something unexpected: empathy. He realizes that Mr. Sin is not trying to take advantage of them. He is trying to save his workers, his farmers, his company. Daniel hears the small trembling in his voice, the worry hidden inside the polite tone. And, suddenly, Daniel understands something that he did not see in the first meeting. This negotiation is not us versus them. It is two sides trying to protect people, trying to survive a difficult moment. When it is Daniel's turn to speak, he speaks more slowly, more gently, more respectfully than before. He says, "Thank you for sharing this. I understand this is not easy for you." And Mr. Sen's face softens. The conversation becomes warmer. They begin exploring possibilities. Maybe a smaller price increase? Maybe a step-by-step change instead of a sudden one? Maybe a long-term agreement that supports both sides? The room feels different now. There is no tension, no pressure. There is only problem-solving. After the meeting, Daniel walks to the rooftop of the office building to breathe the fresh air. He watches small clouds drift slowly across the sky, and he realizes something. Listening actually changed the conversation. It changed the energy, the trust, the connection. And it changed him. He feels a new kind of confidence, not loud confidence, but quiet confidence. The kind that says, I can handle this because I understand what matters. He stands there for a long moment, letting the wind brush against his face, and he thinks about how many times in his life he did not listen deeply. He remembers arguing with a friend and missing the real reason for the argument. He remembers agreeing to tasks at work because he did not ask enough questions. He remembers feeling stressed in conversations simply because he did not slow down. And he whispers to himself, from now on, I will listen. The next morning, Daniel wakes up earlier than usual. He makes tea and sits by his window, taking a quiet moment before starting the day. He opens his notebook again and writes, "Listening is power." He underlines it twice. Throughout the week, Daniel continues practicing. In team meetings, he listens to each colleague. When someone explains something, he repeats it in simple words to make sure he understands. He notices how people smile more when they feel heard, how their shoulders relax, how they share their ideas more freely. One day, a new intern named Sophia asks him for help with a project. Normally, Daniel might give fast advice, but this time he listens. He listens to her confusion, her stress, her worry about doing something wrong. And after listening, he says, "I understand. Let's find a simple way to fix this together." Sophia looks relieved. She thanks him with a warm smile, and Daniel realizes again that listening builds connection. It builds trust. It makes people feel seen. And that is the silent skill. But soon, Daniel faces a new challenge, something more complicated than listening, something that tests his growing negotiation skills. One evening, he receives an email from Mr. Sen's company. The email says they want a higher price increase than they discussed. Much higher. The number shocks Daniel. He reads the email again and again, feeling confused. Why would they suggest something so extreme after such a positive meeting? Did he misunderstand something? Did he miss an important signal? Was there something hidden between the lines? And suddenly, Daniel feels that old fear again, the fear that whispers, maybe your English was not enough. Maybe you missed something important because you are not strong enough. But before the fear grows bigger, Daniel closes his eyes and takes a long breath. He remembers what he wrote in his notebook. He remembers the calm he felt. He remembers that negotiation is not a straight path. It is a journey with turns, surprises, and changes. So instead of panicking, he decides to slow down. He reads the email again, but this time, he listens to it. Not with his ears, but with his understanding. He tries to imagine what is happening on their side. Maybe they are under sudden pressure. Maybe something changed. Maybe they are testing the limits. Maybe they want to start high to create space for discussion. Daniel decides not to react with frustration or fear. Instead, he chooses curiosity. He calls Mr. Harris and explains the situation. Mr. Harris listens carefully and says, "Let's talk with them again." And this time, Daniel, you will lead the conversation. Daniel's heart jumps. Lead the conversation? Him? Fully? He feels the weight of those words. But he also feels something else, a small spark inside him that says, yes. This is your moment to grow. The next day, before the meeting, Daniel takes a long walk around the block. He watches people crossing the street, a cyclist passing by, a worker carrying boxes, a child running with a balloon. Life moves calmly, and he feels the world reminding him that every challenge is simply another step. When he returns to the office, he washes his hands slowly, straightens his shirt, and enters the meeting room. The air feels cool, the chairs neatly arranged, and the screen ready for the video call. When the meeting starts, Daniel greets Mr. Sen kindly. Then he takes a breath and says, "We received your new proposal. It was higher than what we discussed before. Can you help me understand what changed?" His voice is steady, not aggressive, not passive, just clear and curious. Mr. Sen hesitates, then explains that a sudden problem occurred with shipping companies, causing extra costs. He also admits that their management asked them to request a higher price to see how flexible Daniel's company might be. Daniel listens without judgment. He repeats the key points in his own words to confirm understanding. Then he says softly, "Thank you for explaining. We want to support your company, but this number is too difficult for us. Perhaps we can explore a middle point." The conversation lasts more than an hour. Both sides talk calmly, share concerns, suggest ideas, and adjust expectations. At times, the conversation feels stuck, but Daniel uses his new skill. He listens. He stays patient. He clears misunderstandings. He keeps the tone warm. And slowly, like a door opening, agreement becomes possible. By the end of the meeting, Both sides settle on a number that is fair, manageable, and beneficial for everyone. When the call ends, Mr. Harris looks at Daniel with surprised pride. "You led that beautifully," he says. "You stayed calm. You listened deeply. And you moved the conversation forward." Daniel smiles, tired but glowing inside. He feels the quiet joy of someone who realizes that progress does not come from perfect English or complicated strategies. It comes from presence, from clarity, from listening. As Daniel leaves the office, the sky is turning golden. The sun is low, the air warm, and he feels a sense of transformation, small but powerful, like the first light on a dark morning. He walks slowly, letting this moment settle in his heart, knowing that he is growing not only as a negotiator, but as a communicator, a listener, and a confident user of English. And as you listen to his story, you're growing too. You are learning that negotiation is not about arguing or winning. It is about understanding, connecting, and guiding the conversation toward a shared goal. Daniel does not know it yet, but the next challenge he faces will test everything he has learned. It will push him to use not only listening, but also clarity, flexibility, and emotional balance. It will teach him the true art of negotiation, how to stand strong without fighting, how to speak gently without losing power, and how to use simple English to solve complex problems. But that part of the journey comes next. For now, Daniel walks home with quiet confidence, ready for what is ahead, ready to become someone stronger, calmer, and more capable than he ever imagined. And so, the story continues. A few days pass, and even though Daniel feels stronger and more confident after the last negotiation, life has its own way of testing people at the moment they least expect it, and this is exactly what happens next. One Thursday morning, just as Daniel arrives at the office and places his notebook on his desk, Mr. Harris calls him into the conference room with unusual urgency in his voice. When Daniel enters, he sees 3 senior managers sitting around the table, all with serious faces, and immediately he feels a familiar tightness in his stomach, a sign that something difficult is coming. Mr. Harris clears his throat and says, "Daniel, we have a situation. A major client from Germany just sent an email. They want to change the terms of the contract, and if we don't handle this well, we may lose them." The words hit Daniel like cold rain. This is not a normal client. This is one of the company's most important partners, a client they have worked with for years. Losing them would be painful, financially and emotionally, for the whole team. One manager, a tall woman named Ms. Adler, explains further they want lower prices, faster delivery, and more flexible conditions. They say they have received offers from other suppliers. "We need to respond today, and we want you to join the negotiation call." Daniel feels the pressure rising inside him, but he stays quiet, listening, remembering the lesson he learned. Listen first. As he listens, he notices something important. The managers are stressed, and their voices sound tense. Their words are fast, sharp, and urgent. Daniel realizes that this time the challenge is different. It is not only about negotiating. It is about managing pressure, staying calm when everyone around him is anxious. After the meeting, Daniel walks out slowly, holding the folder with all the details. He goes to his desk, sits down, and breathes deeply, trying to collect his thoughts. His mind is loud, filled with worries and possibilities. What if he can't help? What if his English fails him at the wrong moment? What if he says something unclear and makes the situation worse? But then another thought rises from inside him, soft but strong. You handled the last negotiation. You listened. You stayed calm. You can do this too. And that thought becomes his anchor. Before the negotiation call, Daniel decides to take a short break outside. He walks to a small park near the office, sits on a bench under a tall tree, and watches the movement of the leaves. The world feels slow here, gentle, peaceful, and as he listens to the birds and the wind, his breathing becomes steady again. He opens his notebook and writes 3 phrases. Stay calm. Listen deeply. Speak simply. These phrases feel like his tools, his guide, his quiet strength. When he returns to the office, the negotiation call is about to begin. The conference room feels colder than usual. The managers sit with straight backs and tense shoulders. The screen shows the German client, represented by a man named Mr. Vogel, who has sharp eyes and a very crisp tone. Thank you for meeting with us, Mr. Vogel begins. We need to discuss the new conditions. Our expectations are clear. Immediately, the room fills with tension. Mr. Vogel lists his demands quickly, almost aggressively. Lower prices, faster delivery, stricter quality control, and a longer payment timeline. Daniel listens carefully, noticing the tiny pauses, the pressure in his voice, the hints of frustration. He realizes something important. These demands are not coming from confidence. They are coming from stress. Maybe the German client is under pressure from their customers. Maybe they are comparing suppliers. Maybe their company is trying to reduce costs fast. Whatever the reason, Daniel knows one thing: reacting emotionally will not help. When it is Daniel's turn to speak, he adjusts his chair and begins slowly. Thank you for sharing your concerns. I understand this is important for your business. We want to find a solution that works for both sides. His voice is calm, soft, and steady, very different from the atmosphere in the room. And something unexpected happens. The managers in the room look at Daniel, surprised by his calmness. Mr. Vogel stops talking for a moment, as if the gentle tone changes the rhythm of the conversation. Daniel continues, "We want to understand your priorities. Which of these changes is most urgent for you right now?" The question surprises everyone. It is simple, but it guides the negotiation toward clarity. Mr. Vogel thinks for a moment, then says, "The price reduction is the main point." Daniel nods. "I see. So the price is the biggest concern. Could you help us understand what changed on your side?" Again, the question is calm, respectful, and warm. And suddenly, the truth comes out. Mr. Vogel explains that their company recently lost a large client. They're under pressure to cut costs. This is less about wanting better terms and more about surviving a difficult period. The tone of the conversation changes. The managers in the room relax a little. Daniel listens carefully, repeating the key points. He says, "Thank you for explaining. We understand. We want to support you, but we also need conditions that allow us to continue providing quality." The tension slowly melts into cooperation. They begin exploring possibilities. Maybe a temporary price reduction for 3 months. Maybe slightly faster delivery in exchange for a longer contract. Maybe a flexible plan that adjusts over time. As they discuss, Daniel notices something powerful. When one person stays calm, it influences everyone else. Even Mr. Vogel's tone becomes softer. The managers speak more clearly. Ideas flow more easily. The negotiation is still serious, still challenging, but the fear is gone. After almost 2 hours of discussion, both sides reach a temporary agreement. Not perfect for anyone, but reasonable for everyone. When the call ends, the managers in the room exhale deeply. One of them, the usually strict Ms. Adler, says, "Daniel, you kept the room calm." That made a huge difference. Daniel smiles quietly. He feels tired but proud. He knows he still has much to learn, but he also knows he is growing. Later that evening, after everyone leaves the office, Daniel stays a little longer. He sits alone in the conference room, thinking about the day, thinking about pressure, thinking about how fragile people can be when stress rises. He whispers to himself, negotiation is not only about words. It's about emotions. It's about guiding the conversation when others feel lost. He closes his eyes and lets the thoughts settle inside him. On his way home, he walks slowly through the evening streets. The city lights reflect on the sidewalk like small stars. He feels peaceful, even after such a tense day. He realizes something important. Pressure does not make him weaker anymore. It makes him more focused, more aware, more present. When he reaches his apartment, he makes a warm cup of tea and sits by the window. He watches people walking below, each person carrying their own story, their own worries, their own negotiations with life. He opens his notebook again and writes a new sentence. Calm is a negotiation skill. He underlines it. Then he adds another line. Calm is a language. He smiles because it feels true. It feels real. And he knows this lesson will stay with him forever. But Daniel's journey is not finished. A new challenge is coming, one that will force him to use not only listening and calmness, but also confidence, clarity, and the ability to express his value without fear. A moment will come when Daniel must negotiate not for his company, but for himself. A moment of self-worth. A moment of courage. A moment where his voice will matter more than ever before. But that is a part of the story we will explore in the next section. For now, Daniel finishes his tea, closes the notebook, and rests with a quiet heart, knowing that today, he became a stronger negotiator and a stronger English speaker. And as you listen to him, you are growing too, learning how to face pressure with calm, how to speak simply with power, and how to turn fear into clarity. And so, the story continues. The next chapter of Daniel's journey begins quietly, almost too quietly, in a way he does not recognize at first, because sometimes the biggest changes in life begin with a small feeling, a soft thought, a little whisper inside the heart. It happens one morning when Daniel is sitting at his desk, checking emails, sipping warm tea, and listening to the soft hum of the office, when he notices something unusual. He feels tired. Not physically tired. Not sleepy. But deeply, quietly tired in a way that touches his spirit. And he does not understand why. He thinks for a moment, then realizes this feeling has been growing for weeks, maybe months, but he was too distracted by negotiation challenges to see it clearly. He has been working harder than ever, helping the company save deals, manage clients, and protect important partnerships. People depend on him. The managers trust him. His boss praises him. And even though this makes him proud, it also makes something inside him feel stretched, like a rope pulled too tight. Every day he gives his best, but something important is missing. At first, Daniel tries to ignore the feeling. He focuses on his tasks, answers emails, joins meetings, and supports his team. But the truth keeps returning quietly whenever he sits alone. He is doing more than before, but his position, his salary, his title, nothing has changed. He feels like he has grown, but his role has not grown with him. And that creates a soft, silent ache in his chest. One afternoon, after a long meeting, Mr. Harris calls Daniel into his office. "Great job today," he says warmly. "You handled that discussion beautifully." Daniel nods, smiles, but inside he feels a small, invisible weight. He wants to say something about his growth, his value, his contributions, but he hesitates. The words stay locked inside him, sitting behind his ribs like a quiet truth he is afraid to speak. On his way home that evening, while walking through the soft lights of the city, Daniel thinks deeply about his future. He thinks about how he has grown stronger, how he has learned to listen, to stay calm, to speak clearly. He has proven himself in important negotiations. He has become someone the company relies on. But why is he still afraid to speak for himself? The thought troubles him. When he reaches his apartment, he sits quietly at the table, staring at his notebook. He opens it and slowly writes, "I can negotiate for others. Why can't I negotiate for myself?" The words surprise him because they feel so honest, so real. That night, Daniel cannot sleep. He lies in bed, thinking about something he has avoided for a long time, asking for a promotion. He has dreamed of it, imagined it, but always stopped himself with excuses like, "It's not the right time," or "I should wait until I'm better," or "Maybe they will offer it later." But deep down, he knows the truth. People rarely receive opportunities if they do not ask for them. Negotiation is not only for business. It is for life. And if he cannot negotiate for himself, he will always feel like something important is missing. The next morning, he wakes with a strange mixture of fear and determination. He feels shaky but alive. He decides that today he will do something difficult. Today he will talk to Mr. Harris. Not with anger, not with demand, but with clarity and calm, just like the skills he has practiced. At lunch, Daniel walks toward Mr. Harris's office, but halfway there his courage slips away and he turns around. He feels embarrassed. 2 hours later, he tries again, but this time Mr. Harris is in a meeting. Daniel sighs. His nervousness is growing. His thoughts are messy. He feels stuck between fear and hope. When the office becomes quiet in the late afternoon, Daniel stands and walks purposely to the door of Mr. Harris's office. He knocks softly. "Come in," Mr. Harris says. Daniel enters, feeling his heartbeat in his chest. He sits down slowly. Mr. Harris smiles gently. "What's on your mind?" Daniel takes a breath. A long, deep breath. He feels the words sitting at the edge of his tongue. He reminds himself of everything he has learned. Listen, be calm, speak simply. But now the one he must listen to is himself. I wanted to talk about my role here," Daniel begins. His voice is soft but steady. Mr. Harris nods, giving him space. Daniel continues, "I've been helping with negotiations. I've learned a lot. I feel I've grown and I want to take on more responsibility. I want to contribute more. And I would like to discuss my position." The room becomes quiet. Daniel's heart feels like it stops for half a second. He wonders if he said it right. If he sounded too direct, too soft, too vague. But then Mr. Harris smiles. "I'm glad you brought this up," he says. "I've been noticing your growth too." Daniel breathes out slowly. A little relief enters his chest. But then something surprising happens. Mr. Harris continues, "However, we are facing a few budget challenges right now. A promotion might not be possible at this moment. But let's talk about it." Daniel feels a small wave of disappointment wash through him, but he stays calm. He knows that negotiation is not about immediate victories. It is about exploring the possibilities. So he asks gently, "Can you help me understand what needs to happen for a promotion to be possible?" The question changes everything. Mr. Harris leans back, thoughtful. "We need to reorganize some responsibilities. We need someone to take more leadership in client relations. And we need a clearer internal process." Daniel listens carefully, nodding slowly. He repeats the key points, just like he would in any negotiation. So, he says softly, "If I take on more leadership in client relations and help create a better process, then we can talk about a promotion later?" "Yes," Mr. Harris says. "Exactly." Daniel thinks for a moment, then says, "I'd be happy to take that responsibility." And suddenly, the conversation becomes an opportunity, an opening, a new path. They discuss details, goals, possible timelines. And by the end of the meeting, Daniel feels something powerful, something bright. He did it. He asked for himself. He spoke for himself. He negotiated for himself. And even though he did not receive an immediate yes, he created a clear path, a path that leads forward, not backward. When he leaves the office, he feels lighter. The evening sky is purple and gold as the sun sets, and he walks slowly through the quiet streets, breathing deeply, letting this moment fill him with pride. That night, at his apartment, he sits again with his notebook. His hand shakes slightly as he writes, "My voice has value." He underlines the sentence many times. He smiles gently. And suddenly he realizes something important, something almost spiritual. Negotiation is not only about prices or contracts or business. Negotiation is about self-respect. It is about speaking your truth. It is about knowing what you bring and communicating it with calm and confidence. As he sits there, Daniel remembers all the moments in his life when he stayed silent because he felt his English was not strong enough. All the moments when he agreed too quickly because he did not trust his voice. All the moments when he wanted to express himself but hid behind fear. And now, something inside him feels awake, alive, strong. But Daniel does not know that soon a new challenge will arrive, one that will push him beyond everything he has learned so far. A challenge that will test not only his listening, his calmness, and his ability to ask for himself, but also his ability to handle conflict, disappointment, and unexpected change. And this next challenge will not come from a client. It will come from inside the company itself, from a situation he never imagined, from a moment that will shake his confidence in a new way. But he is ready, even if he does not know it yet. He is becoming someone new, more confident, more aware, more courageous. As he closes his notebook and turns off the light, he feels a warmth inside him, the kind of warmth that comes from growth. And as you listen to his journey, you are learning something important too, that your voice matters, that your ideas matter, and that speaking with calm, simple English can change your life. And so, the story continues. The next challenge in Daniel's journey does not arrive loudly or suddenly. Instead, it begins quietly, like a small shadow slowly growing on the wall, something he does not notice at first because he is busy working hard, learning more, and stepping into new responsibilities. For weeks, he takes the lead in client relations just as he promised. He organizes meetings, supports colleagues, handles difficult emails, and helps design a new internal process that makes communication smoother. People begin coming to him for advice. They ask him for feedback, for guidance, for help with complicated situations. And even though it makes him proud, he begins to notice that someone in the office is not happy about his growing role. Her name is Clara. She is a project coordinator who has been at the company for many years. She is smart, experienced, and respected by many. But for some reason, she begins acting differently toward Daniel, colder, shorter, sharper. At first, Daniel thinks maybe she is having a difficult week. He tries to be kind, tries to include her in discussions, tries to listen, but Clara seems annoyed every time he speaks in meetings. She interrupts him. She questions his decisions. She gives him cold looks. And slowly, Daniel begins to feel tense whenever she is around. One morning during a team meeting, Daniel presents a new idea for improving communication with clients. He speaks calmly, clearly, and with confidence. People around the table nod in agreement. But Clara leans back in her chair, crosses her arms, and says in a dry tone, "I don't think this makes sense. We already have a system. We don't need to change everything because someone wants to feel important." Her words hit Daniel like a cold wind. The room becomes quiet. His face warms with embarrassment. He feels the old fear rising in his chest, the fear from before he learned to negotiate, before he learned to speak for himself. But he forces himself to breathe, to stay calm, to stay steady. Instead of reacting emotionally, he asks gently, "Can you help me understand what part doesn't make sense to you?" His voice is soft, respectful. But Clara just shakes her head. I don't think your plan is realistic, she says sharply. You don't have the experience. Again the words cut him, and again the room becomes tense. The meeting ends awkwardly. People leave quickly, whispering to each other. Clara walks away with fast steps, leaving Daniel standing alone. And something inside him feels heavy, almost painful. He goes to a quiet corner of the office and stands there for a long moment, trying to understand what happened. Why is Clara acting this way? Did he do something wrong? Did he accidentally hurt her feelings? Or is she worried about losing her place in the company? He does not know. But he knows one thing. He cannot let conflict grow silently. Silence makes conflict bigger. He decides to speak to her. That afternoon, he walks toward Clara's desk, but his legs feel heavy, like he is carrying stones. He is afraid, not of the conversation itself, but of misunderstanding, of saying something wrong, of making the situation worse. But he reminds himself of the lessons he has learned. Stay calm, listen deeply, speak simply. He knocks gently on her desk. Clara, do you have a moment? He asks quietly. She looks up with tired eyes. What is it? Daniel tries to keep his voice steady. I felt some tension in the meeting earlier. I want to understand if I did something to upset you. Clara sighs and leans back in her chair. For a moment, Daniel thinks she is going to ignore him. But finally, she says, I've been doing this job for years. Now suddenly you come in and everyone is listening to you. It feels like my experience doesn't matter anymore. Her words are sharp but also filled with sadness. Daniel feels the tension in the air soften just a little. He listens carefully not only to her words, but to the emotion behind them. He understands now. It is not anger. It is fear. Fear of being forgotten. Fear of losing value. Fear of being replaced. He nods slowly and says, Thank you for telling me. I didn't realize you felt that way. I respect your experience. I really do. And I want to learn from you, not compete with you. Clara looks away, unsure whether to believe him. Daniel continues, My goal isn't to take anything from you. I just want to help the team. I think we can do more if we work together. Clara's eyes soften, just a little. She takes a breath. Maybe I overreacted, she says quietly. I've been stressed. Things have changed quickly. Maybe I felt threatened. The honesty surprises Daniel. He never expected her to admit this. He smiles gently. I understand. And if I did something that made you feel left out, I want to fix it. They talk for almost 20 minutes. Slowly, the tension melts. The misunderstanding becomes clear. The fear becomes lighter. And at the end, Clara says, Okay, let's try working together. Daniel walks away from her desk feeling a quiet victory, not a loud one, not a public one, but a personal one. He faced conflict. He listened. He understood. He spoke with clarity and calm. And he helped someone feel heard. But as the days pass, Daniel learns that conflict inside a workplace is not something you solve once. It is something you manage slowly, gently, with patience and trust. Working with Clara is not always easy. Sometimes she still feels competitive. Sometimes she still questions his ideas. But now the energy is different. He understands her better. She understands him better. And they begin to cooperate. One day, while preparing a client strategy together, Clara suddenly says, Your idea last week, it was good. I was wrong to shut it down. Daniel pauses, surprised. Thank you, he says softly. She nods. I guess I was afraid you were trying to take my place. But I see now that you just want the company to grow. It is a small moment, but it feels important, like a new door opening. That week, something even more surprising happens. Ms. Adler, one of the senior managers, calls Daniel into her office. She sits with a straight posture, her serious eyes looking directly at him. Daniel feels nervous, but he sits quietly, waiting. I heard about the tension with Clara, she says. And I heard how you handled it. Daniel feels his stomach tighten. He wonders if he is in trouble. But then she continues, you handled it better than many people with 10 years of experience. Daniel's eyes widen. He did not expect this. Ms. Adler smiles lightly. Negotiation is not only with clients. It's with colleagues, with teams, with situations. You showed maturity. Daniel feels a warm wave of relief and pride. But then she adds something even more important. We want you to take more responsibility in team communication. You have the right balance of calmness and clarity. The words feel like sunlight entering a dark room. He feels seen. He feels valued. He feels real growth taking shape. That evening, as Daniel walks home, he reflects on everything that has happened. He thinks about the conflict, the misunderstanding, the courage it took to speak to Clara, the way simple English helped him communicate clearly, the way calmness changed the situation. And slowly, he realizes something important, maybe the most important lesson so far. Negotiation is not about winning or losing. It is not about being the strongest voice in the room. It is about understanding people. It is about seeing their fears, their hopes, their stress, their uncertainty. It is about helping them feel safe and heard. And when people feel heard, solutions appear. Trust grows. Cooperation becomes possible. As he opens his apartment door, Daniel feels tired but peaceful. He sits at his table, opens his notebook, and writes, "Understanding is stronger than argument." Underneath it, he adds, "Connection is the real negotiation." He closes the notebook slowly and rests his hands on top of it. He knows the next part of his journey is coming soon, a moment when he will face the biggest negotiation of his life, a negotiation that will combine everything he has learned: calmness, clarity, confidence, listening, respect, and the ability to navigate conflict. And this next negotiation will not be easy. It will test his courage in a new way. But he is ready. Truly ready. For now, he breathes deeply, feels the quietness of the evening, and lets himself be proud, not because he is perfect, but because he is growing, step by step, with simple English and a brave heart. And as you listen to his story, you, too, are learning how to communicate with empathy, how to face conflict with courage, and how to use calm English to connect with people. And so, the story continues. The final part of Daniel's journey begins on a Monday morning that feels strangely quiet, the kind of quiet that happens before something important arrives, the kind of quiet that makes you feel as if the world is holding its breath. Daniel walks into the office with a feeling he cannot explain. He feels ready for something, though he does not know what. He greets his colleagues, sets his notebook on his desk, and begins reading through the morning emails. Everything seems normal at first, until he reaches one email that makes his eyes widen and his heart beat a little faster. It is from the company's headquarters. It says there will be a major restructuring of roles and responsibilities in the next 2 weeks, including leadership positions. Suddenly, everything makes sense. The tension in recent meetings, the extra work managers have been doing, the silence in the hallways. Something big is coming, and Daniel feels a soft tremble in his stomach as he continues reading. The message says that they will evaluate employees for new roles, including a leadership position in client relations, the exact area Daniel has been growing in. For a few seconds, Daniel just sits there, frozen, staring at the screen. He feels excitement rising, but also fear. A voice inside him whispers, "This could be your chance," but another voice whispers, "What if you're not ready?" He closes his eyes and takes a long breath. He remembers everything he has learned in the past months: listening, calmness, clarity, confidence, empathy. He remembers standing quietly in front of his mirror practicing simple English phrases. He remembers the fear he felt before his first negotiation. He remembers facing Clara and resolving conflict. He remembers asking Mr. Harris for more responsibility. Step by step, he has grown into someone stronger. And now the final test is here. At lunchtime, Mr. Harris calls him into the conference room. "You saw the email," he asks kindly. Daniel nods. Mr. Harris continues, "There will be interviews for the new leadership role. They're looking for someone who can handle pressure, negotiate calmly, communicate clearly, and support the team. I want you to prepare." Daniel feels the world pause for a moment. "Do you think I'm ready?" he asks softly. Mr. Harris smiles warmly. "I do. But the question is, do you?" Daniel hesitates. He wants to say yes. But the truth is complicated. He feels ready and not ready at the same time. He feels strong but still afraid. But he also knows that growth always feels like this, uncomfortable, uncertain, exciting. That night, Daniel cannot focus on anything else. He walks home slowly, thinking deeply about the upcoming interview. He thinks about all the moments that brought him to this point. He remembers his early fear of speaking, the trembling in his voice, the doubt in his thoughts. He remembers the first negotiation, where he discovered the power of listening. He remembers the pressure negotiation, where he learned to stay calm when others were stressed. He remembers the moment he asked for his own value, and the conflict he resolved with Clara through understanding. Every part of his journey has led to this final negotiation, the negotiation for the next chapter of his life. When he reaches home, he sits at his small kitchen table and opens his notebook. He writes slowly, "What do I want?" He stares at the words. At first, the answer feels unclear. But then, after a long quiet moment, he writes, "I want to lead. I want to help. I want to grow." This truth fills his chest with warmth. He reads the words again and whispers them softly like a promise to himself. Over the next few days, Daniel prepares with gentle focus. He practices simple, clear sentences. He reviews his past projects. He reflects on the lessons he has learned. He even practices calm breathing before bed. But more importantly, he practices something deeper, trusting himself. When the interview day arrives, Daniel wakes early. The sky outside is pale blue. The world feels clean and new. He dresses carefully, smooths his shirt, and looks at his reflection. He sees someone different from the man he was months ago. Someone quieter inside. Someone stronger. He arrives at the office early. The meeting room is ready, the chairs neatly arranged, the sunlight spreading softly across the table. Soon, the senior managers enter, Ms. Adler, Mr. Harris, and a representative from headquarters named Mr. Reed. They greet Daniel warmly, but he can feel the seriousness in the air. This is important. This is real. Daniel sits, places his hands on his lap, and breathes slowly. The interview begins with simple questions about his responsibilities, his ideas for the team, and the challenges he has faced. Daniel answers slowly, calmly, using simple English, just the way he practiced. He chooses clarity over complexity. He chooses honesty over perfection. But then comes the moment he knew would arrive, a difficult question. Mr. Reed leans forward and asks, "Daniel, tell us about a moment of conflict in the team and how you handled it." Daniel feels a small knot in his stomach. He knows exactly what the question is pointing toward: his conflict with Clara. For a moment, he hesitates. He wonders if he should avoid the story, choose something easier, something safer. But then he remembers the journey he is on. He remembers that negotiation is about truth. He decides to tell the story. He explains how tension developed between him and Clara. He explains how he felt uncomfortable, confused, unsure. He explains how he chose to speak to her calmly, to listen, to understand her fears. He explains how honesty and empathy turned conflict into cooperation. The managers listen quietly. Daniel can see their eyes softening as he speaks. When he finishes, Ms. Adler nods with genuine respect. "That is exactly the kind of leadership we need," she says softly. Daniel feels something warm spread through his chest. The interview continues. They ask him about negotiation strategies, communication with clients, and his vision for the team. He answers thoughtfully, slowly, with sincerity. He does not pretend to know everything. He does not try to impress them with complicated words. He simply speaks from experience and from the heart. Finally, near the end of the interview, Mr. Reed asks the question Daniel feared the most: "Why should we give you this role?" For a moment, Daniel feels frozen. His mind becomes blank. But he breathes, closes his eyes for half a second, and listens to himself. He remembers his notebook. He remembers the words he wrote. "I want to lead. I want to help. I want to grow." And suddenly, clarity arrives like a calm wave. He looks up and answers softly, "Because I care. I care about the team. I care about our clients. I care about communication. I care about solving problems with understanding. I may not be perfect, but I listen. I stay calm. I learn. And I want to help this company grow with me." The room becomes silent. But it is a warm silence, a thoughtful silence. The managers exchange quiet looks. Something has shifted. Something has opened. The interview ends with handshakes and sincere smiles. Daniel walks out of the room feeling light, almost weightless. He does not know the result yet. He does not know if he will get the role. But he knows something far more important. He has spoken with honesty, calmness, clarity, and strength. He walks outside for some fresh air. The sky is bright. A gentle wind moves through the trees. He feels peaceful. That evening, when he arrives home, he sits by the window with a warm cup of tea. He watches the city lights glow softly. He does not try to guess the result anymore. He simply feels grateful for how far he has come. 2 days later, he receives an email. His hands shake slightly as he clicks it open. The message is short but full of meaning. "Congratulations. You have been selected for the leadership role." Daniel covers his mouth with his hand. His eyes fill with warmth. He feels a deep, quiet joy rising in him, not loud, not explosive, but and now he is a leader. Because he listened. Because he stayed calm. Because he spoke simply and honestly. Because he respected people. Everything he learned became part of him. He closes his eyes and breathes slowly, letting the moment sink into his heart. Later that night, he opens his notebook one last time. On a fresh page, he writes, "Negotiation is not about winning. It is about understanding. It is about connection. It is about courage. And it begins inside you." He closes the notebook gently. And in the soft silence of his room, he smiles. Because he knows the journey will continue. There will be new negotiations, new challenges, new conversations. And he is ready for them, not because he is perfect, but because he has learned the most powerful skill of all: how to stay human in every conversation. And as you sit with this story, listening to Daniel's growth, learning with him step by step, you too are becoming stronger, calmer, clearer. Your English is not just improving. Your confidence is improving. Your voice is growing. And your story is continuing. And so, Daniel's journey ends here, but yours continues with every word you speak and every conversation you face. And from Mr. English Lab, I want you to remember one thing: your voice has value. Always.